James Franco's portrayal of Harry Osborn across Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is a nuanced depiction of a character torn between loyalty, jealousy, and the shadow of his father's legacy. In Spider-Man 1, Harry starts as Peter Parker's best friend, providing emotional support as Peter navigates his life as Spider-Man. However, Harry's insecurities, mostly from his strained relationship with his father, Norman Osborn, begin to surface. Norman's favoritism toward Peter further exacerbates Harry's feelings of inadequacy, laying the groundwork for his eventual transformation into a tragic antagonist. In Spider-Man 2, Harry evolves into a more complex character. He inherits Oscorp after his father's death, but becomes consumed by revenge against Spider-Man, who he believes killed his father. This obsession drives him to strike a deal with Doc Ock, showcasing his descent into moral ambiguity. Franco's performance captures Harry's inner turmoil as he grapples with betrayal and grief while still yearning for Peter's friendship. By Spider-Man 3, Harry takes on the mantle of the New Goblin, fully embracing his father's legacy. His arc in this film is significant because it ties together themes of vengeance and redemption. Initially driven by hatred, Harry uses his intimate knowledge of Peter to attack him emotionally and physically, weaponizing their shared history to break Peter on multiple fronts. However, his journey stands out because it ultimately transitions from villainy to heroism. After regaining memories lost due to amnesia and confronting the truth about Norman's death, Harry reconciles with Peter and sacrifices himself in the final battle to save him. His act of sacrifice completes his arc as a tragic yet redeemable character who learns the value of friendship and forgiveness. Franco's portrayal is memorable because he imbues Harry with layers of vulnerability and complexity. Despite mixed reviews for Spider-Man 3, Franco's interpretation remains one of its highlights, showcasing Harry Osborn as a deeply flawed yet relatable character whose struggles resonate with audiences. Harry Osborn's storyline in Spider-Man 3 had the potential to be one of the most compelling arcs in the trilogy. Unfortunately, several narrative missteps prevented it from reaching its full emotional and thematic payoff, leaving audiences frustrated with how his character was handled. One of the biggest issues with Harry's arc is the lack of focus. Spider-Man 3 juggles three villains, Venom, Sandman, and New Goblin, and as a result, Harry's storyline feels rushed and underdeveloped. His quest for revenge against Peter, which had been building since Spider-Man 2, is sidelined by unnecessary subplots, like the symbiote's influence on Peter and Sandman's backstory. This overcrowded narrative robs Harry of his screen time needed to fully explore his descent into villainy and eventual redemption. The decision to give Harry amnesia after his initial confrontation with Peter is widely criticized as a lazy plot device. Instead of delving deeper into Harry's transformation into the New Goblin, the writers essentially hit pause on his arc, reverting him back to his neutral state. This not only disrupts the momentum of his revenge-driven storyline, but also feels contrived and unnecessary. When Harry regains his memories later in the film, it happens abruptly, further highlighting the lack of coherence in his character development. Harry's manipulation of Mary Jane is another weak point in his arc. After recovery from amnesia, he forces MJ to break up with Peter by threatening her, a move that feels more like filler than a meaningful addition to his story or to the main story. While this subplot is meant to show Harry's descent into cruelty, it doesn't add much depth to his character or advance the plot significantly. Instead, it detracts from the emotional stakes by focusing on melodrama rather than meaningful character interactions. Harry's death is undeniably tragic. His sacrifice to save Peter and Mary Jane is an important moment that completes his redemption arc. However, it doesn't feel earned because the build-up to this moment is rushed. This revelation could have come much earlier in the trilogy or been taken out entirely. Instead, it undermines Harry's motivation by making his long vendetta against Spider-Man feel pointless and for nothing. Furthermore, while Harry dies a hero, many fans were disappointed that he didn't fully embrace his villainous side before redeeming himself. In the comics, particularly Spectacular Spider-Man issue 200, Harry loses himself completely in the climactic battle against Peter before dying tragically. This darker and more intense version of Harry's downfall would have given audiences a more satisfying exploration of his character and made his redemption feel even more impactful. Harry Osborn's story in Spider-Man 3 suffers from inconsistent pacing and missed opportunities. The film could have focused solely on Harry and Sandman as antagonists, allowing more time to develop Harry's descent into madness and eventual redemption. Instead, his arc feels rushed and overshadowed by other plotlines, leaving viewers yearning for a deeper exploration of his transformation into New Goblin. Don't get me wrong, While Harry's sacrifice is memorable, it falls short of delivering the emotional payoff fans expected after 2 films of build-up, making his story both frustrating and bittersweet. Harry Osborn's arc in Spider-Man 3 could have been significantly improved with more coherent and consistent writing. While the film aimed to balance themes of revenge and forgiveness, several narrative flaws undermined Harry's potential as a compelling character. Here's how his story could have been rewritten for a stronger impact while maintaining the original themes. The amnesia subplot is one of the most criticized aspects of Harry's arc. Instead of having Harry lose his memory after his initial fight with Peter, the story could explore Harry faking amnesia as a manipulative tactic to get closer to Peter and Mary Jane. This would allow Harry to subtly undermine their relationship while plotting his revenge. For example, he could use his regained closeness with Peter to gather information or set traps, creating tension and suspense throughout the film. Alternatively, the amnesia subplot could be removed entirely. This would free up screen time for Harry's transformation into a full-fledged villain, allowing him to fully embrace the new Goblin persona and escalate his vendetta against Peter without unnecessary contrivances. Harry's manipulation of Peter and Mary Jane could have been expanded into a more impactful subplot. Instead of merely forcing MJ to break up with Peter, Harry could use their relationship as leverage in a darker and more personal way. One idea for Harry is to blackmail Peter by threatening both MJ and Aunt May's safety unless Peter reveals his secret identity to the public. This would push Peter into an impossible moral dilemma, testing his resolve as both Spider-Man and a friend. The butler scene, where Bernard reveals Norman Osborn died by his own glider, is widely considered a narrative misstep. If this scene needed to remain in the film, it should have been placed earlier, more preferably in Spider-Man 2, to give Harry more time to process the truth about his father's death. This would allow his eventual redemption in Spider-Man 3 to feel more earned and less rushed. Alternatively, cutting the scene out entirely would eliminate its contrived nature and allow Harry's change of heart to come from his own reflections or interaction with Peter and MJ. Even with Sandman and Venom in the story, Harry's arc could have been given more focus by tying it thematically to revenge and forgiveness. Sandman's storyline already explores these themes through his accidental killing of Uncle Ben, while Venom represents corruption and vengeance. By paralleling these arcs with Harry's journey, the film could create a cohesive narrative that emphasizes how revenge can destroy lives and how forgiveness can heal them. Harry's redemption could still occur in the final battle, with him ultimately sacrificing himself to save Peter from Venom or Sandman. This would preserve the theme of forgiveness while giving the audiences the intense showdown they expected. With these changes, Harry Osborn's story in Spider-Man 3 could have reached its full potential. These improvements would have allowed him to shine as both a tragic villain and a redeemed hero, making his death far more impactful while staying true to the themes of forgiveness and revenge. The story of Harry Osborn in Spider-Man 3 draws significant inspiration from the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 200, written by J.M. DeMatteis with art by Sal Buscema. Spectacular Spider-Man issue 200 serves as a culmination of Harry Osborn's arc as the second Green Goblin. The comic explores Harry's psychological descent as he manipulates Peter, Mary Jane, and even his own family. He threatens to reveal Peter's secret identity and stalks him relentlessly, keeping Peter on edge with promises of revenge. However, his actions are not purely villainous. Moments of vulnerability reveal that Harry is battling inner demons caused by his father's influence and the Goblin Serum. The climax occurs when Harry lures Peter to a final confrontation at the Osborn Foundation townhouse. After a brutal fight, Harry incapacitates Peter with a drug needle and sets explosives to kill them both, declaring that people like them only bring destructions to those around them. However, upon realizing that Mary Jane and his son Normie are still in the building, Harry has a moment of clarity. He saves them, and at Mary Jane's urging, returns to rescue Peter as well. Tragically, Harry succumbs to the effects of the experimental Goblin Serum combined with the injuries from the explosion. The comic ends with a heartbreaking 2-page silent sequence showing Spider-Man mourning his friend. Both the comic and the film explore Harry's journey from vengeance to redemption. In both stories, Harry begins as an antagonist consumed by hatred for Peter, but ultimately sacrifices himself to save others. This mirrors the comic's central theme: even those who fall into the darkness can find redemption through acts of selflessness. In both versions, Harry dies saving Peter. In Spider-Man 3, he jumps in front of Venom's glider to protect Peter during the final battle, a heroic act that parallels his decision in the comic to rescue Peter from the exploding building. The strained friendship between Peter and Harry is central to both stories. The comic delves deeply into their shared history, with Harry shifting between love and hatred for Peter, Similarly, Spider-Man 3 portrays their relationship as complex and layered, culminating in reconciliation before Harry's death. Both versions depict Harry as a tragic figure battling inner demons. In the comic, his instability is tied to the Goblet Formula, which intensifies his paranoia and emotional swings. The film shows Harry's grappling with his father's legacy and his own moral conflict. But there are key differences. One major difference is how far Harry descends into villainy before redeeming himself. In the comic, Harry fully embraces his role as Green Goblin, uses psychological warfare against Peter, and even endangering innocent lives. The film doesn't push him far enough. While he attacks Peter emotionally, his actions feel less calculated and menacing compared to the comic. The comic's final battle is deeply personal. Harry wants to destroy both himself and Peter because he believes that they are both doomed to hurt those they love. This nihilistic perspective adds emotional weight to his redemption when he chooses to save others instead. In contrast, Spider-Man 3 frames Harry's sacrifice more of a spur-of-the-moment decision during a chaotic battle rather than a culmination of deep internal conflict. Another thing is that the comic emphasizes Harry's relationship with his son Normie and his wife Liz, adding layers to his character by showing how his actions affect those closest to him. The film leaves out this dynamic entirely, focusing solely on his relationship with Peter and Mary Jane. The comic delivers a more drawn-out and emotionally resonant farewell through dialogue-free panels that allow readers to absorb the gravity of Harry's sacrifice. The film opts for a quicker resolution that lacks the same level of emotional depth. While Spider-Man 3 isn't a direct adaptation of the comic, it clearly draws inspiration from its themes and key moments. The film tries to balance revenge and redemption but ultimately falls short due to rushed pacing and narrative inconsistencies. If the film had leaned more heavily into the darker elements of Harry's arc, allowing him to fully embrace villainy before redeeming himself, it could have delivered a more satisfying homage to its iconic comic storyline. Nevertheless, both versions highlight Harry Osborn as one of Spider-Man's most tragic figures, a man torn between legacy, love, revenge, and forgiveness. Harry's journey across the three films, from Peter's loyal friend to a vengeful adversary and ultimately a selfless hero, was well established. His transformation into the new Goblin felt like a natural progression of his character, along with the emotional build-up for Spider-Man 1 and 2. The signs of his internal conflict were hinted at earlier in the trilogy, with his strained relationship with his father and his misguided quest for revenge against Spider-Man. These elements provided a solid foundation for Harry's redemption in Spider-Man 3. Despite flaws like the amnesia subplot and the butler scene, Harry's sacrifice works because it echoes his father's death but flips the narrative on its head. Whereas Norman died consumed by selflessness and vengeance, Harry died saving Peter out of love and forgiveness. This symbolic reversal cements Harry as a tragic figure who breaks free from his father's shadow, ending the cycle of violence. James Franco's portrayal of Harry Osborn deserves recognition for bringing depth to the character across the trilogy. Franco captured Harry's vulnerability, rage, and eventual redemption with nuance and sincerity. While Spider-Man 3 didn't fully capitalize on Harry's potential, particularly in exploring his darker side, the film still delivers an emotionally resonant conclusion to his arc. In the end, Harry Osborn stands as one of Raimi's most decently crafted characters, a flawed but compelling figure whose death reminds us that forgiveness can triumph over vengeance. Even with its imperfections, Harry's story leaves a lasting impact on both Peter Parker and audiences alike.